tonight I have the pleasure of talking with our founding father, if you will, Corey Ralston, who is literally the founder of Child Actor 101. And he has been
Hello.
gracious enough, yep, yay! He's been gracious enough to give us some time and attention to answer a lot of those questions that we as parents often have about our kids in this business, in this industry. But before we get into the questions, I just wanted to ask him if, Corey, if you could introduce yourself briefly and tell us sort of, where did Corey Ralston come from and why did you
Yeah.
start Child Actor 101?
So, Corey Ralston came from a little town in the Central Valley, California, and I was a theater kid. And at a certain point in time, when I was about, I would say like 9 years old, my mom was getting a lot of encouragement from people saying that I should, pursue acting in Hollywood. And so I did that for a while. So I was a child actor until school became more important to me. So around, like the end of junior high school, I decided that I didn't want to pursue that anymore. And I got heavily involved in theater. When I graduated from high school, I went back to Los Angeles, did some acting and, dipped my toes in a lot of other parts of the industry. Ended up really finding a fit with like talent management and agencies. So I worked for some of those, and then life took me some other places, and I found myself back here in 2018. And shortly after I got back into the industry, managing youth actors with a small roster, of which I still have those actors now, even though they're like 20 years old. Time flies. um I found myself back in the industry, and I had seen online that Wendy Wright had made a group, Talent Managers for Actors, and I thought it was a great group, and it was there was industry pros that were there to answer questions, but I really felt like it wasn't geared towards kids. And I since being youth actors was my specialty, I decided that there should be a place like that that can help help parents navigate this industry with honest answers and save people from a lot of the predatory scams that are out there that exist. So sort of my
I
story.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I know I agree with you. Yeah, Wendy's group is great for older actors, but it doesn't answer all the questions that parents of children actors have or child actors. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
and they're massive group, and like we've started slow, and we're a private community, and we don't let every single person that asks to come in be in the group. But so far we have over 11,000, almost 12,000 members, and more than 70% of them are active every month, which is
I love it.
huge.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is huge, and it's grown like a lot in the past few
Yeah.
years, exponentially. I tell every single parent I find that has a child, I'm like, "Do you know about Child Actor 101? Do you know about Child Actor 101?"
Yeah,
Because
it's grown. I mean, yeah, we can get to that, but yeah, it's evolved into something much larger and more amazing than I ever imagined it could be. So I'm very pleased with our our home, our
yeah,
community.
well, I can vouch for many moms and say we are too. So thank you for doing that. That was so long ago. Along those lines, thinking about parents who are just starting out, um, when when a parent, in your perspective, from your perspective, when a parent reaches that milestone of I have a kid who loves to do this, who is asking to do it professionally, what would be the first piece of advice, the first thing you wish they could understand before they start madly Googling everything and joining every Facebook group there is and asking everybody and their mother for advice? What would be that one key thing?
That they have a real conversation with their kid about like what they think that involves and how much of their energy and life that they want to put into this. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that like the entertainment industry is a business. It's not just like community theater is a business as well, but there's a lot more. It's a hobby for like some folks out there, but this is trillion-dollar industry, and you have to go all in. And so it takes a lot of investment and a lot of time and energy. And I think just knowing how passionate your kid is about it, I think is probably the first step.
I love that. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that it's all about the fame and all about the notoriety, and they don't realize, no, it's actually some of it's hard. It can be, it's like a job. I mean, it is a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So parents often get told a lot of things about this industry. Um, Sometimes, there's the whole like lightning in a bottle. They think that their kid is so talented and that they're going to shoot to the top of some A-list actor list somewhere, right? Um, and so they hear things like, talent equals quick success, or you have to go all in, or someone knows the secret formula. Which of those thoughts do you think causes the most damage early on, and what truth do parents really need to hear instead?
Um, I think, there's no, it's not dishonest to say that sometimes, fame happens like lightning, right? There are cases that do happen like that. And those, like, predatory showcases make tons of money off of that thought. But I think what people need to understand is that relationships, like any job or anything you invest your time in, is where you're going to get the most out of it. And so it takes time to cultivate that, and it takes time for people to like get to know you know you and your talent, and seeing you over and over, unless you're just wildly ripe for a job, which is when something can happen like that, where fame can happen overnight, or you could book a job very instantly. But um there's just there's a lot of actors out there trying to do this, and I think everyone should understand that just the sheer numbers. I like to tell people about, like how one role, can see as many as like 2 to 4,000 actors being like put in trying to get a self-tape appointment or something like that,
Hmm.
and maybe 1 to 10% of them will get that audition. So it's not about booking the job. I always say is the miracle, right? But the job is cultivating these relationships and making friends and letting people know who you are and putting yourself out there in as many ways as you can. That is the most important thing.
So along those lines, the and I love that, especially the numbers. I think a lot of parents they don't realize quite how many people are out there for that. And along those lines, since COVID, because you've done this pre and post COVID,
Hmm.
um, what in your estimation, what would you say is the percentage of increase? Like how many people did they used to see for roles?
um I would say, for like in person, like first round casting, maybe 25 to 75, like maybe 100 or 200 if it was a huge film type of role, and they would go from there, or maybe they would see self tapes for people in other markets. But I think now that self tape is king. It's the law of the land. I think that has increased, uh, you know probably double the amount of actors they can see. I think sometimes casting
Hmm.
um gets overwhelmed when they go, oh, maybe we shouldn't have asked that many people to tape, which is why, that's a topic of its own. But like how important tapes are, and how like there's no certainty that everyone's watching every moment of your tapes either.
Sure, sure. Okay, that's helpful. Um, so I want to talk for a little bit about support and what does healthy support look like? So obviously parents want to support their kids. They know that, if no child is able to do this all on their own, there are too many roles, right? You're a lighting director and a camera operator and
Yeah, yeah,
wardrobe and hair and makeup and all the things, right? Never mind mom and snack provider and all the things.
yeah.
Um, but sometimes, accidentally or subconsciously, parents can become controlling and it can become sort of the parent show. So, from your perspective, what does healthy support look like? And where have you seen parents cross the line when they don't even necessarily realize it?
I think um healthy support is when you allow other people in to help you with this, because it takes a village, right? There's some moms that like want to be involved maybe a lot more than they should, when a mom should probably be a mom, or a dad should be a dad, and like make sure that their kids are still wanting this, checking in with them and making sure that this is what they want, evaluating scripts, and making sure that the content aligns with their like moral center or things like that, um and not pushing, but really like being in tune with your kids, and like how they're doing and how they feel. But I think where it goes wrong is when maybe a parent wants it more than their kids want it, or they sort of tend to maybe freak out at the investment and the time that they've already put into it, and the amount of money they put into this. And I think that can tend to put a pressure on a kid to do something that's completely out of their control, which is book work. Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
like there's a lot of parents like, oh, it's not happening. It's been 6 months. You've only had 2 callbacks. You haven't booked anything. You've had like, 25 tapes, and nothing's happening. And I think that can like really derail a kid, and make them feel not as worthy as they should, because there's so many reasons why you don't book a job. And so I mean, I remember when I was a kid myself feeling that pressure, that I felt everyone was expecting me to book everything that I read for, and that's just not the case. When these audition opportunities, I always say the audition is the job, so it's about doing your best, and making a stake in the role, and doing it your own way, and letting casting know who you are, so they could find the perfect part for you. So I think it's just that undue pressure that parents can either knowingly or unknowingly put on their kids, that they're either wasting their time, they're damaging their family, they're spending too much money, and they're not doing it right, or something's wrong. And I think that is where it can be really damaging to a kid.
Mm, I hear that. Yeah, we always ask Evie after every anything she does. The first question is always, "Did you enjoy that?" And if the answer
Yeah.
is yes, then we keep going.
Even when it's easier now with self tapes. You don't have this sort of instant judgment that you would from like an in-person call, like the vibe of the room, or what people's body language was, or what have you, even if a kid maybe knows how to read that as well. But just that question of like, how'd it go? Did they like you? Like,
Oh, oh,
who knows?
oh, that just right. They're not like they're going to say it.
you
Yeah.
know like
Okay.
like so then, oh, it's great, they loved it, they laughed, like you feel like you have to like put this positivity out when you're a kid, when you have no idea. So if the kids just focus on being
Right.
themselves, like fully themselves, the uniqueness of who they are, and putting themselves out there, and having a good attitude, and enjoying what they're doing, that's how things go well, and that's how stars are made. But when there's this undue pressure, or they feel like they have to be someone else, or their parents are making them feel like they're failing, or what have you, then I think that's when it becomes something not as enjoyable, and kids tend to not thrive that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So along the lines, what do you see as an early mistake that some make then that can either similarly create more stress for the child, or that you see them doing that affects relationship with someone on set, or an agent, or a manager, or casting director?
um Not letting them be themselves. I can't tell you how many, I've done a lot of like coaching, where I will read for a tape, and I see the parents prepping their kid for the scene, and getting their lighting right, and all of that, and there seems to be so much emphasis on, you messed up that word, your line was wrong, you don't know it, or you got flyaways in your hair, or like your shirt is wrinkled, or all of that stuff, which is just, casting doesn't notice that, they don't care about that, they're looking for the essence of a character, and the vibe that you're bringing, and something interesting that you're doing, and all that other things that parents tend to be like, trying to zhuzh or fine tune, or make look perfect, or look like what they think Hollywood wants is stressful. So I think that's one of the first things I see happen is that, like, oh, even in headshots, like, oh, you have to look perfect or whatever. And that, no one wants that. They just want to see you. Like, we wouldn't want to see if like perfect kids that all look the same. We need interesting colors and textures and characters and from all walks of life. And so if you own the uniqueness of yourself, then when the role is written for that type of character, then your chances are much higher of, making your stamp on it and getting noticed.
Guilty as charged. The number of times that I've combed everyone's
Yeah.
hair.
I could, I have done that myself with my own clients at like, a network test or callback, like make sure you look okay. But like that's something we lose sight of. And like you are who you are. And that's
Right.
just,
It's
just
not
be who
like
you are.
characters don't ever have messy hair.
Right. Hmm. So it's not
I love
about
it.
perfection. And I
Oh,
think that is if you're trying to get that or you think that, like everyone's expecting that, then you're, sadly mistaken.
um, so I want to go back to you started out by talking about the fact that you were a child actor
Yeah.
yourself. And when you think back on that experience, um, what did your own mom or dad get right that still influences how you guide parents today?
Um, she made it fun.
Mm.
So we lived about 3 hours away from LA, and there was no self tapes back then. This is the Stone Age and of the time called the 90s. And so she'd pull me out of school there, like casting notices came in fast and I'd have to learn sides on the way, but like just the she always made it more than whatever we were going to like read for. And I've had other people give that advice too, like don't make the most important thing about your day this callback or this in-person read or whatever, like have something else to, like like that you can't wait to do. And so my mom always made it fun. The drives were fun. We would she would like write notes and we'd like honk if you're horny to the truck drivers and things like that, and we would just like listen to old radio shows, and we would just have a blast. Like I felt so close to her, and so it was always fun. So I always felt like what we're doing wasn't stressful, even though it was stressful. You're getting pulled out of school, you're learning a script fast, and like trying to look good. She'd always say like you're so pale. Like she make me put my like head on the dashboard to get some color before we got there.
You're gonna get a
But
car
like yeah,
tan.
she was fun, and so like I think that helped a lot. That like it was stressful, but there was always something else that was going to happen. We were going to go like hunt down like some like movie star's house after the like read or go to some like Planet Hollywood or something like that. There's always she always made it a good time, and so I think she did that right.
I
Made
love
the
that.
experience very very memorable.
Yeah, because then the audition ends on this high note because you're doing something fun afterwards.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like we just rushed down there like, 3 or 4 times a week back and forth with this, 6 hours in the car. It was just, like we had a good time. So like the drive there was fun and the audition was fun and what we did after was fun and like it was all great.
Oh, I love that. All right, so along those lines, and I didn't tell you about this part. So here's the surprise that we're having, um, and we'll do this on next week too. But I want to do a rapid fire round with you.
Sure.
So I'm gonna give you two options or sometimes three maybe, and
Okay.
you have to just pick. Okay,
Okay.
ready?
Okay.
All right, speed round. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Okay, coffee, tea,
Tea.
dogs, cats.
Dogs.
Yeah, I figured that much.
Hmm.
Ocean or mountains?
Mountains.
Oh, okay. Favorite movie you wish every kid actor would watch?
The Goonies.
Ah, one thing people would be surprised to know about you.
Um, well, I tell this to a lot of my kids that above my head up here is like a shelf in this office in my home that is full of wigs.
Oh,
And there's purple wigs and gray wigs and girl wigs and boy wigs and all kinds of fun wigs because for a time being I was really involved in this online app called Smule, which was like it's kind of like a karaoke act, but there was a lot of like theater people, and so there's all this creativity where you could play different parts and you could do like a whole musical number and be everybody. And so like I was constantly buying backdrops and wigs and costumes, and so still above me, even though I don't have the time to explore that, and that was a good creative outlet for me. But I still have a big shelf full of like wigs and hats above me, and so I think people would be surprised to know that, right? When I'm teaching your kid, there's a bunch of like wigs just kind of like hanging off the shelf up there.
You're gonna have to take a picture of that and share it with us.
Yeah, yeah. I have
I
to
love
just
it.
start, showing up with a new hairdo every day.
Right. Yeah. All right. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Okay. Favorite movie from your childhood?
The Secret of My Success with Michael
Oh,
J.
yes.
Fox. Still watch it
Yeah.
all the time. Love it. Or Overboard. Either of those two are iconic. Yeah.
That is a good one too. Yes. Yeah, I loved Secret of My Success. Oh, and the
I was a
music.
little mini Michael J. Fox when I was a kid. I was like very conservative, which is interesting because it's not like how I am now. I was very like Nixon and Reagan and Bush and like all about that. And I loved Michael J. Fox's character on Family Ties, and I like wanted to be him. And so like of course I watched that movie, and like it was all about business and yuppiness, and I loved it, and I still do. I think it's I may have evolved and changed personality a little bit, but I will always love The Secret of My Success. Just one of the
That's a
funniest
good. I think
movies.
I'm gonna have to put that into the rotation of like movies you need to see, child. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. One word your friends would use to describe you.
Um Crazy. I mean, I know that's sort of like a generic thing, but like if you look through every yearbook I've ever had, or like things, like, oh, Corey, you're so crazy. Like I'm just kind of, I can be wild and like a lot of fun, and so yeah, I think probably crazy.
That was fun. It's funny because I would say caring.
I think I'm a genuine and caring person too, but like I don't think friends are always that vulnerable with you.
Hmm. I get that. I get that. Well, we appreciate your caring. All right, last question,
Okay,
because we started with your mom. We're going to end with your mom. What
sure.
was the best advice she ever gave you?
Um, so I was raised by two really powerful women, my grandmother and my mom. They're Portuguese and they're very strong. And they both instilled in me that I could do whatever I want as long as I set my mind to it. And so I lived this sort of I had this mindset that like if I wanted to be a doctor, I'd be a doctor. If I want to be the president, I'd be the president. That there was no limitations to what I could do. And even in my life, I've pursued things and done well at it. And so I've never felt like, oh, I can't do that. That's like something that, like someone else could do, but I couldn't do that. And so I think the best advice is like, like just, do the work, put your mind to it, and go for your goals, and you'll make them come true. And they have, every single one of them. So I think that like it's made me who I am, and I think I try to you know pay that forward as well to kids. Like there's no limitations on anything you want to do. It may take a lot of work. You may have to really put your nose in the books, or get in the grind to make your dreams come true, but you can. Absolutely.
Love that. Oh, well, thank you, Corey, so much for taking the time today to share your wisdom. And I look forward to hearing more fun stories from you next week.
Yeah.
But I think you should have to wear a wig during one of these conversations.
Okay. Well, I'll consider that. I'll consider that.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Okay.
Take care.